We ask it in the name of the monotheistic God, Brahma, and God known by many names, by many different faiths. A man and a woman.
What? No, that is not a comedy skit. This is not some kind of satire. This is a real life politician, a representative in the United States Congress. Just when you thought things couldn't get more absurd, more crazy, here we are today. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rudowski of WeAreChange.org. And as the low IQ ingrates literally argue about platitudes, generic corporate basic B slogans, and establishment talking points that are meant to divide and conquer, we, on the other hand, will be talking about the complex, important news that actually affects you. Yes, today's video is going to be a very important one, as these videos are becoming more and more important as, of course, the propaganda is being ramped up, and it's predominantly done to brainwash you so you become a good consumer. They want you to be a good little corporate slave that eats your GMO Monsanto food that's very fast and affordable by McDonald's. You better eat that murder burger, which, of course, creates a situation that is not good for you. That is not beneficial for you. And we have to admit, in my opinion, when it comes to the conholio sickness, there also has been a lot of propaganda. But before getting into that very specific issue, also right now it's important to note that there is an important election happening right now in Georgia that will decide the fate of the Senate, the last bastion of government that is not controlled by the Democrats, which of course that might change today in today's election. The Democrats and Joe Biden are promising if they get their way, if they get full total control of the government in the Congress, in the Senate, in the U.S. presidency, that they'll give you $2,000. The other guys are saying, hey, they really shouldn't be in charge of all of the government. So yes, that's basically what's happening right now in one of the most expensive Senate campaigns in history. People are voting right now, and of course, this will lead to many important ramifications and will most likely play an important role in the events that are about to unfold in Washington, D.C., as already the National Guard is stationed and not allowing people to freely pass and move in certain streets unless, of course, they have the proper paperwork to do so. Businesses are being boarded up, as, of course, some people are preparing for the worst. We're, of course, keeping a very close eye on this situation, and I might even be able to provide you some live reporting if the situation allows it to. And I'm able to do that, plus a lot more for you here as an independent media organization that doesn't sell out to the multinational corporations or the Chi-Coms, mainly because of your support. And one easy way to support us is by checking out some of the companies that we work with. And one of them is SafePreparedAndReady.com. It's a company that I've been working with for close to, I think, over 5 years now, if not longer. I like them. I think you will too. They provide storable emergency food that could be stored for up to 25 years. They actually have really good food. I like them. They're definitely a premium product because they're not just rice and beans. If you're interested and want to have your own case of emergency food supply that will last you for over 25 years, just click the link down below and go to SafePreparedAndReady.com. Purchases go towards supporting this independent media organization. Now, when it comes to reporting here in the United States, I think it's fair to label the mainstream media's reporting very hyperbolic, very sensational, and very emotional based, so it triggers a certain response. It's also important to note when someone is emotionally wound up, critical thinking skills usually go out the door, as well as logic, and this is why we see emotion-based information as the most prevailing and engaging content when it comes to online. Now, some people would say that this is exemplified with some of the recent coverage by some media organizations regarding the conholio sickness. And it's important to point out that media organizations do use words like horror to describe what they are saying is 1,000% spike in admissions, specifically in LA with the large spike in deaths, with even a new term introduced into our lexicon, the super conholio sickness. Now, the picture painted by the mainstream media is definitely a grim one. It's definitely not an optimistic one, as of course they warn that only the worst is still yet yet to come. Things will go bad, and they will only get worse from here, is exactly what we're hearing. But we could stop it and make it all better if we just give more of our rights away to politicians. And let's be honest here, that's essentially what's going down, as of course new lockdown measures are introduced, new restrictions, which many have argued are more detrimental than the actual sickness, as even statisticians are coming out and saying that these lockdowns don't work because they also force people to gather in fewer places like supermarkets, and therefore allowing the spread of a sickness to become faster than it normally would. Now, of course, this is one prevailing theory according to William N. Briggs, but regardless of that, the debate is not being had. More lockdowns, more restrictions are being pushed, and let's just be honest here, I think it's fair to point out, especially here in the United States, they haven't really worked, especially in places like Los Angeles that have some of the world's strictest restrictions and lockdowns, but now have a huge spike in cases. Now, regardless of where you stand, the debate should be had. It should be argued with statistics, data, science, and logic, and it is not. It is just the prevailing logic that is being blindly followed, as of course politicians are calling for more lockdowns, more restrictions, and implementing them in ways that will have a profound effect on our way of life that is still not fully understood and recognized. At least we should have the debate. We should have the discussion. It should be ruled upon unanimously by the people affected by this, and it's not. And that's not just the only layer of hypocrisy that needs to be addressed here. And no, I'm not just talking about the TikTok nurses here specifically, but a very important point to bring up is that many of these, quote, experts and scientists and media personalities, along with the politicians, knew that this was coming. They warned us and they were fear-mongering about this from the very beginning, but yet they didn't prepare. There's no expansion of ICU units. There's no new hospitals. There's no preparedness efforts at all done with this. Literally, they sat around fear-mongering, telling us the worst is to come, and yet they haven't done anything for it. And now they're saying because we're unprepared, because the hospitals are overloaded, you have to pay for our bad mistakes, since either we are absolutely totally incompetent and unprepared for any situation coming our way, even though we clearly see it, or two, there could be even, let's just be honest, they could be that dumb or they could be that criminal. And either possibility is plausible here, but neither of them are reassuring. Another thing to bring up, if we are under a national health emergency, why aren't all of our scientific and medical resources used to deal with this horrendous horror that the mainstream media keeps fear-mongering about, rather than, of course, literal scientific studies that are being done right now determining that, quote, trans women, quote, retain an athletic edge over women who are not trans. Gee, who would have thought that pumping a whole bunch of testosterone into yourself would affect your athletic behavior and ability? Huh? Who would have thunk it? But these are actual scientific studies that are being touted right now by NBC News. Our resources are being spent for Pakistani gender studies, boggling down the scientific community about trans women, with politicians virtual signaling right now as their #1 priority. Now, I'm sorry, but if you want me to take this great horror and threat seriously, I think you should too, and you should stop playing the insane clown world Olympics. I'm sorry, is it too hard to ask for you to you know, not be criminally incompetent and inept? Well, dealing with government, that is a hard ask, but it shouldn't be. Another layer of hypocrisy to address here is that when we're talking about this super conholio sickness, we're talking about a UK variant of it after a mutation of the, quote, original conholio sickness. Now, very importantly, where are the politicians? Where are the talking head mainstream media folks who are outraged, who are triggered about the xenophobia and racism behind the UK variant, just like they were with people calling the conholio sickness the Chinese flu? I'm sorry, but why was there an outrage and a freak out when one classification was made based on the geography, like it always usually is, and now not when there's another same, almost example of it. How does that make freaking sense? And this should show you that, of course, there's a large propaganda effort that prioritizes ideology over merit, over critical thinking, over actually doing the right thing. The exorbitant amount of power that China is expanding with its influence is absolutely terrifying. It's absolutely scary, as even the New York Stock Exchange refuses to, of course, delist Chinese military companies, and their power and influence will only continue to grow, especially with the Democrats in charge, who, of course, are very favorable towards China. A country that, of course, censors information to this day about the origin of this sickness, which prevents us from actually dealing with it adequately. And let's be honest here, it's not being dealt with adequately at all. What is happening, though, is that there are medical studies that show there is actually something that helps with this, but information about it, along with the medical journals surrounding it, are actually being blocked and censored as we speak. There's also a mainline doctor's testimony that's being censored over something that we can't even say on this YouTube channel, because if we do, we would be censored. We actually talked about this with Dr. Chris Martinson. The video is on our Patreon and Subscribestar, as well as our website, wearechange.org. But the fact that studies showing that something that we can't even say is showing promises at reducing close to 80% of the deaths here. Again, these are mainline, golden standard scientific studies being done here surrounding this specific thing that we can't even mention. You can't talk about that, and you can't even talk about how the conholio sickness jab may potentially not be the best for everyone, as of course there are many reports of things that we can't even talk about. So yeah, as you could see throughout this entire video, I am walking a very fine line that I am trying to balance very perfectly, still getting information out there to you as best as I can. And this is why, again, we're doing alternatives with our website, wearechange.org, our Patreon and Subscribestar, to be able to talk to you in more of a free-flowing conversation and less walking on this tightrope that has been created by, let's face it, individuals who don't want you gaining information that might potentially help you. And one thing that I think people need to understand more than ever, the establishment, the ruling elite, the politicians, the prostitutes, they don't give a damn about you. They never gave a damn about you, and you would be foolish to think that they somehow magically started to do so last year. So yeah, take that with you. And if you know someone still being a fool, believing that someone else has their best interests at heart at the highest echelons of power and authority, please send them this video. It is more critically important than ever that they see a point of view, a perspective that, of course, they can't get on the mainstream media. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, and this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.